Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Tarusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into machine minds. Hello and welcome to the Machine Minds show. And on today's episode, I'm joined by the one and only Fady Saad. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Greg, for inviting me.
Let's jump into it. Now, if you've listened to this show before, you know I normally start with the person's name, their titles, and a bit about their background. But Fady comes with a very unique background, very unique perspective, and he's involved in a number of interesting areas within the robotics ecosystem. So I really wanted to pass it over to you, Fady, at the beginning to give us an insight onto your background, your motivations, how you've ended up where you are right now in the investment capacity and the robotics ecosystem.
Sure. I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I was born, raised, and educated in Egypt. I went to the American University in Cairo. And right after graduation, I joined a large corporate company called Siemens. And I worked for some time. And then the company decided to do a global merger with Nokia Networks and became a huge joint venture, Nokia Siemens Networks. And I was on the kind of strategy, business development side of things. And I was stationed in Egypt and North Africa, but I was working with clients in Southern Europe and the rest of the Middle East. It was a very fulfilling kind of job, and I learned a lot, but it was not my calling. And I knew that my heart and my passion was really in small companies where I build things and scale things. I'm a builder by nature. So, and I got really attracted to this idea of looking at companies from a complex system perspective. And many sustainable things around us is just systems with feedback loops and viable systems, and we can geek more about that. But I got attracted to this idea, and long story short, I came across this program at MIT called Systems Design and Management, and this was a perfect fit for me. So January 2011, I quit my job, brought my family from Egypt for the first time in the US, first time in Boston, and obviously first time to step into MIT. And this started a whole phase in my life and a whole new journey. And they say that once you are in MIT, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and this is by no means an overestimation. It is like that.
Really?
And I immersed myself into the MIT ecosystem, the Boston and Cambridge ecosystems. And I started a company while at school because I came across one statement in a book I was reading that said the best way to learn about companies is to start one. So I folded the book, and I was sitting under the famous dome at the MIT library. And I'm not making this up. This is really what happened. And I folded the book and said, you know what, I'll look for entrepreneurship courses, and I'll start a company. And this was the first year I was at MIT. So I went through this whole process. It didn't go anywhere, and ultimately we folded the company. We licensed the technology to one of our customers, but the learning was phenomenal. I learned from this, I would say, 10x more than any courses or books I read while at MIT. And when I graduated, I got heavily engaged into the robotics space. Got asked by a local robotics company to join their executive team and help them commercialize some of the robotics technology they have. And this is how I came back to robotics, because in my undergrad I studied robotics. I studied automation. My senior project was around automation. So somehow it came full circle. In 2013. So I worked in this company for some time, and then came across the challenge of commercializing robotics technologies, and this kind of inspired me to think about a new model to do that, which became the genesis for mass robotics. Which I like to describe as not an incubator and not an accelerator, but a startup escalator. And we can speak more about that. But co-founded Mass Robotics back in 2014, took it from just an idea, a couple of PowerPoint slides, into one of the largest robotics ecosystems and clusters in the US and probably worldwide, leading a cluster of around 400 robotics companies, more than 75 resident companies, 40,000 square feet of shared office and lab space. And I personally led all of the corporate partnerships and most of the fundraising for the organization. So we formed close to 40 strategic partnerships with companies like Amazon Robotics, FedEx, Honda, Mitsubishi Electric, Analog Devices, among many others. 2019, it became quite obvious that even though that we solved the partially solved the infrastructure and kind of model for commercializing and scaling, there was definitely a funding gap for early stage robotics companies, because basically you don't have this category of investors who understand robotics, who have been in robotics and know how to kind of assess and engage with robotics companies. So there was a gap there. And from the many conversation, many kind of companies that I was mentoring, I was advising and helping, and I was trying to connect them with VCs that I have known for some time, it was very clear that there was something not working there. So so we said, you know what? I mean, this is another opportunity. Let's put together a fund. So and this was the kind of an inspiration for Cybernetix Ventures. So I joined forces with Mark Martin, who is a 30-year executive at Analog Devices. He used to lead the sensors industrial automation business unit at Analog Devices. Tons of experience. He invested in companies, spun out companies, acquired companies. So between the two of us, we really complemented each other a lot, and it was a very strong partnership. So we came together and we decided to launch Cybernetix Ventures as one of a kind and a pioneering VC fund focusing on robotics, automation, and industrial AI. And we started investing in 21. And basically, we take a vertical focus. We focus on four key verticals: manufacturing, logistics, construction, healthcare. And there are cutting across enabling technologies, but those are the main four verticals that we focus on. And we can speak also about why those four verticals.
Yeah, I'd love to dig into all of that.
Sure. And yeah, today we made 15 investments between the US and Europe.
Nice.
And we were very blessed and very fortunate to see amazing companies that invited us to be part of their journey. And we are happy to kind of help those companies and scale them and work side by side.
That's perfect. Thank you for that background. And listeners, as I mentioned, very unique background, very unique perspective. So you can see from the company creation, grassroots, and now the investment side of things, there's not many people that are doing that. So I think the whole ecosystem in Boston is probably very happy to have you guys there. Do you ever, with Mass Robotics, is it companies that are founded in Massachusetts, or do people ever relocate and move their companies to be part of the escalator?
We have seen different kind of different situations. Companies who are, I mean, based in Boston, others who started somewhere else and they want to relocate, or they just want to have an office in Massachusetts. So they would just have a space in Mass Robotics. Sometimes it's a international or a European or foreign company, and they just want to have presence in the Boston area. So yeah, we have seen different models.
That's great. And with Cybernetics, is it primarily seed investment? Do you do seed and A? How far along
Yeah.
do you help
So
them?
as I said, the real gap is pre-seed and seed,
Okay.
because it's mainly, I mean, if you put the terminologies aside, because we could argue about what's pre-seed, what's
Right.
seed, what's A, but basically it comes down to pre-revenue and post-revenue. So if you are a robotics company pre-revenue, then traditional investors, how do you assess that? I mean, you have zero revenue. So now you need to do your own kind of judgment on the technology, on the market, and on the team.
Yeah.
So, and you cannot successfully do that unless you have the experience and have the connections to really vet those three things.
So true.
And this is what make it very difficult. And I think, as I said, we're very fortunate to be well positioned on all these areas. I mean, the technology, obviously, we understand it, and even if there are something that we are not fully kind of deep in, we have the resources, we have the people, that the experts that we can just, I mean, one contact away, that we
Right.
can check with them, what do you think of this technology, any other kind of alternatives, and so forth. And the teams, we know the key players, we can easily kind of check on people and do our own references. The market, again, both Mark and I, we have been blessed with our kind of corporate connections. So we know lots of corporates in the space, both suppliers and users. So, I mean, automotive companies or construction companies or medtech or life science companies, logistics companies. So, so this allow us to like pick up the phone and speak to an executive at FedEx and say, what do you think of this technology? Do you have a need for something like that?
Yeah.
And then we listen. So I think this is what kind of really make this quite unique and differentiated.
That's great.
So back to your question. So yes, it's pre-seed, seed, but we also know that we have to stay with our companies until they basically have a safe harbor and they get into growth investors. So we do follow on Series A investment too.
Awesome. Okay, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, I have this conversation at least once a week about the type of investors, understanding hardware, the time
Yeah.
horizons, the capital intensive nature of the projects and stuff like that. And when it's the
Sure.
disconnect of VCs that traditionally might invest in SaaS companies, for example,
Yeah.
trying to get involved with hardware,
Yeah.
and then they get burned, with like e-mobility or self-driving
Yeah.
cars, whatever, and then they're like, wow, I didn't realize it's going to take so much money or so many
Yeah.
people,
For so much time.
so much time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
true. I work with another VC at the moment, helping them find founders, but they purely focus on hardware. So it's like a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air when these people hear that, and I'm sure
Sure.
from your founders side as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for the people who are listening, I think one way to think about like this spectrum of investment, if you think of a kind of a straight line, a spectrum, on one end you will have SaaS investments with the round sizes, how much capital, how much time it takes to scale, the milestones, the ARR kind of milestones, and all of that. And then at the far end, you have biotech and life science, which is also has its own established round sizes, milestones. Like if you are in kind of clinical trials, you are at a certain range of valuation. If you get into human trials or animal trials, you are at another kind of stage. If you secure an FDA approval, then it's a whole kind of different valuation.
Right.
And then kind of obviously small quantities and large production. So those two ends are well kind of defined somehow. And then robotics is somewhere in between. And then you even have hardware, I would say, somewhere also in between, but it's still very different than robotics, because robotics, you have software and you have
Hmm.
hardware, and then you have the integration between those two. So it's not only pure consumer hardware. It's quite complex.
Yeah.
And as you said, it falls somewhere in between those two kind of categories of
Yeah.
investment.
It's a huge benefit to have the industry experience and connections that you guys have as well, so you can actually assess these companies and these projects and see their viability.
We try our best, but it's not easy
It's
even
not
for us.
foolproof, yeah, for sure. So before we move on, you obviously mentioned your vertical focuses and having all of these connections. How do you guys do with balancing technological innovations with the market viability? Because obviously
Yeah,
people get most excited about like moonshots and world-changing stuff,
yeah,
and then there's real revenue generating businesses that can have effect in the short term. I say short
yeah,
term in hardware
yeah.
sense, but
So I think that there are different kinds of investment, you know. So as you said, there's the investment with the idea of, you know what, this is a new technology, this is a new product. We invest in that. There is not yet a market for that. We will build the product, we'll build the technology, and we will build the market for it. This is one way to do investment. I mean, good example is mobile phones, Tesla, or electric vehicles in general. Like, these things didn't exist, you know. Like, I mean, they came up and then they created the market. I mean, they didn't have any benchmarks before them, right?
right.
So this is one way to do it. Um, Another way to do investment is to look at existing markets and the needs and the challenges on those markets, and then go back to the technologies and see, okay, what technologies do we have that can be packaged or can be commercialized to solve some of these problems. And this is the approach that we have taken, because the first approach didn't really work very well in robotics. I mean, when you look at the last maybe 15, 20 years, you cannot point to a single robotics companies that started as just kind of a pure technology looking for the application and they were successful. All the companies that were successful were companies driven by a market need. You think of, I mean, actually, I'll take this back. The only one, maybe iRobot. I mean, they developed the Roomba and then they went out and kind of tried to find the market for that. Maybe this is the only exception. But aside from this one, which is also the only only successful consumer robotics company out there, aside from that, when you think of all the successful exits in the space, Kiva, Universal Robot, Motional, which used to be in autonomy,
Hmm.
Iris, and other kind of surgical robots come. All those were driven by a market need, whether it's labor shortage or kind of a need for higher productivity, or yeah, the similar kind of needs. So yeah, I think it's our approach is market driven.
That's great. Jumping into another section in terms of the robotics innovation ecosystem, from your perspective and from seeing the work that you've done with mass as well as on the investment side of things, who do you think like key players are that are responsible for ensuring the success of this, of the robotics startup ecosystem?
Mm, the key players in terms of, like, I mean, tell me more.
So we've obviously got founders, people with ideas, and you
Yeah,
notice very quickly the disconnect or the gap, shall we say, with funding, right? You can be
yeah,
an inventor, you can be an innovator all you want, but until
yeah,
you gain some sort of traction or partners, you
sure.
guys, it seems like you guys, and without, blowing the horn too much, you have each area here, you have the investment, you have the industry connections, you have a home for these companies. But without you there, who else can actually help here in ensuring success? Because not everyone will probably have the ability to be in Boston, right?
Yeah.
How else can they be successful? Or someone who's at college at the moment listening to this, thinking about, I want to start my own robotics startup. Who can be the key players that I can attach myself to or get close to?
Sure. Um, I think the technology is important, but having a market understanding, like in a sense, you want to decide what kind of problems you're trying to solve, what kind of applications you want to look at, and this will eventually lead you to which verticals that you want to focus on. So we always, whenever we invest in a company or we look at a company, we always look for vertical expertise on the founding team. We never invest in a pure kind of technologists founding team. Never. Again, this proved not to be successful in robotics when you look at the data over the last 15, 20 years. Having a vertical and a market experience on the founding team proved to be one of the key success factors. So we look at, like, if you are trying to innovate in the construction space, we it's good to have, I mean, the technologist, the kind of the person that will develop the algorithm and make the designs and select the right technology to do that. But we also looking for someone from the construction space that know what's going on, know who are the players, who are the customers, what's the right business models and pricing kind of models for that. So and you can see this pattern in all of our portfolio companies. Raised Robotics in San Francisco, exactly that, a technologist and someone from the construction space, in specifically the application they're trying to solve, which is the facade installation. Coazo in Germany, again, they had the technology, but also the experience in construction and scaffolding kind of movement. Rugged Robotics in Houston, same story. A technologist, a couple of smart folks from MIT, but also they have the construction experience and they worked in construction projects for some time, and so forth.
I remember you sharing that at Robo Business last year, where we originally met on the investor panel that you were part of. And I've gone on to share that with a lot of founders as well, that when you're speaking to investors, they don't just want to see your great idea where you might have over-engineered a
Yeah,
problem. They really need industry expertise, and it doesn't need to be. And also people that I've spoke to that aren't technologists that want to start a company in that space, and it's really valuable. You need to have business or vertical expertise as well as technical expertise in a solid founding team.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. And when you, just a quick kind of example, when you think of, like, you don't have to know everything, but at least you need to have the well-rounded team that will complement each other. So when you think of someone like Mick Mounts, the founder and the CEO of Kiva, uh, he was not the technologist. He was a logistics warehousing consultant, and he understood the whole logistics warehousing space. Uh, so when he saw the need, he went back and he basically recruited his kind of classmates to work with him on building the robots, the solution that will solve this problem. So, and the other way around, we have seen technologists that go and recruit the kind of market or vertical experts to join their team.
Yeah, makes sense. Once you know the problem that you're solving, it's probably a lot easier to get those people on board to be part of it.
Sure.
What do you look for from both sides, from Mass Robotics and Cybernetix Ventures, for in terms of a founding team? Do they need to be at a particular stage or size to join Mass Robotics, or at a particular stage or size of team, or further along in their technology to actually gain investment from you guys?
So I'll focus on cybernetics. We, as I said, we look at pre-seed, seed, and Series A. So I mean, we invest in companies that have an idea and PowerPoint slides, but they were repeat founders. So
Mm,
we
okay.
know their ability to build a company. We have invested in founders who build some sort of a prototype. We invest in founders who have a finished product and they are revenue generating. So we have seen all of that. But we're looking for companies that fit into our thesis, our scope. So if companies reaching out to us and like say, "Oh, we have this cool agricultural robot," and sending us information, I mean, it's a little bit frustrating because we don't do
Ag tech,
ag
yeah.
tech robotics. So it means that you didn't spend the time to look at our website and know exactly what we are trying to invest in. I mean, the information we put on our website. This is not just marketing purposes. This is our thesis. This is what we do. This is what we believe in. Um, and we cannot make exceptions because once you make an exception, it becomes a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So we stick to our thesis because we believe in it, and we're trying to execute on this vision. So you need to fit into the scope in terms of verticals, in terms of the stage. If it's too late, like Series B plus, then it's kind of
Mm,
too late for us. Um, so geography wise, we like to focus on areas where the concentration of our network is there and can help the portfolio companies because we take an active role in supporting companies. We take board seats, we take observer seats, and even if we don't have any of that, we schedule quarterly calls with the companies. We stay kind of involved with the companies. Uh, we split all of our portfolio companies between Mark and I. So each one of us is responsible for certain companies in our portfolio. We have a whole kind of platform and methodology in terms of how we can follow up with the companies, how we can open up our network, with the help of our marketing director, Kendall. We have been building and scaling our own kind of private network, the Cybernetics Collective, which is basically our platform to work with our portfolio companies and our close community to provide all the resources in terms of co-investors, growth investors, service providers, corporates, and expertise.
nice.
So it's not just kind of investing in capital. There's a lot more to it.
That's great. And we've touched on a number of the potential challenges here that these robotics startups can encounter in their journey, right? And
Yeah,
there's also a ton of opportunities and impact that they can have in these industries. And technology has been advancing so fast in the last few years in this space, so making a lot more accessible. What are you most excited about in terms of like these emerging trends and emerging technologies? What do you envision for the landscape coming in the next few
sure.
years?
We are very excited about the four verticals. I think logistics and manufacturing, everyone knows that those are very hot spaces.
Hmm.
And I think there is still lots of opportunities there. And obviously, logistics proved to be an amazing kind of space because of all what's happening in e-commerce. Manufacturing again is gaining tons of attention and a ton of even kind of capital because of the national kind of strategy in terms of reshoring manufacturing to the US. And this is not just a matter of economical security, but even national security. So there is lots of efforts nationwide in terms of how we can improve and upgrade our manufacturing capabilities. And there is no way that you can do this without automation and manufacturing. And Mark Cuban has been very vocal about that. And he's totally right. The only way to reshore manufacturing, become competitive in manufacturing, is to use robots and automation. believe it or not, China has been investing heavily into robotics and automation, and it is forecasted to be the largest market for robotics and automation.
Wow.
This is just to give you a sense of what's going on. Aside from those two verticals, construction is pretty. I would say it's kind of uh, crossing the stage of warming up, and it's becoming hot space now. So we led an initiative around robotics and construction back in 2017. We were probably among the very first to kind of highlight that there is an opportunity there. And today, there are new VC funds focus on the built world and construction and all of that. And all what they do is new technologies for construction. Um, Obviously, we are strong believers in the value of robotics for construction because of the labor shortage and more pressures on productivity. So this is definitely, I would say, becoming a hot space now. The semi kind of nascent one is healthcare, life tech, med tech space. So lab automation, pharmacy automation, exoskeleton, medical devices that are using automation robotics. I think we will see more and more developments happening there. I'm personally excited about it because um, it's saving lives, it's improving patients' conditions, and we have the technology to do it. I think the real challenge is the complexity in healthcare and kind of getting access to hospitals and insurance and approvals and FDA and reimbursement schedule. Like it's very complex.
Right.
But I don't think that there is any way around it. We have to do it because we have an aging population, not only in the U.S. but everywhere. Everyone is speaking about longevity technologies. There is more pressure on our healthcare institutions. COVID was just an example of like what could happen if we have these kind of situations, and how our institutions and hospitals could be kind of maxed out and stretched out to the verge of collapsing. And thank God, I mean, this didn't happen. But there is definitely a need for robotics and automation technologies to be involved. So this is what we are excited about. You can ask me what you are not excited about, but I'm not.
We won't go
going
in
to
there.
share. I'm not going to share this in public. But I feel responsible to share some ideas about what's happening in the humanoid space because there is obviously lots of excitement. I mean, I would blame Elon Musk for kind of starting this whole thing, but also kind of few companies here and there doing very interesting stuff around humanoids. Obviously, Boston Dynamics took the lead many years back, and humanoids. I mean, research and development have been going on for many years. But here's the thing. I don't believe and I don't buy into the argument that humanoids will become widely commercialized and used in the coming 5 years at least. I just don't buy into that. And it's just looking at trends in the technology, looking at market readiness for something like that, looking at public perception and public acceptance of that, looking at regulation too. So I just don't see all these things to converge to allow the adoption of humanoids. So as an investor, we don't invest in humanoids. We wouldn't invest in humanoids now, at least. Maybe down the road, but not now. For the investors out there who might not be as engaged as we are in the robotic space, I'm warning you, don't burn money in humanoids. This is the whole drone thing, the whole autonomous vehicles. It's happening again. It's a hype, And I think, I mean, sometimes we need the hypes to push the envelope and develop things, but um, yeah, and I'm kind of voicing this out because my concern is people will get excited, will invest in humanoids, and they think, oh, we are investing in robotics. No, you are investing in humanoids,
Hmm.
which is a subset of robotics. There is tons of other robotics technologies out there. You are investing in humanoids, and if you lose your money,
You
don't
don't
come back
and
and
say
say
robotics is to blame.
robotics
Yeah.
is bad, it's a bad investment. No, you choose the wrong
Right.
subset now.
It's the ripple effect is what you're worried about that's going to happen. Yeah.
Exactly,
I mean,
exactly. So
you can
I'm
see.
worried about the that they'll fire back
Yeah.
on people who are in robotics.
Exactly. No, that's definitely fair. And I think it's some of what we spoke about earlier, the investment partners that don't understand hardware, like if they're more used to SaaS. And we've seen it, like you mentioned, some of these bubbles, the autonomous vehicles, then we saw it with crypto and blockchain, and then now AI,
Yep.
everyone's got their hype, and then humanoids, people deploying capital that aren't as experienced in those areas, not realizing what they're doing, and then they have to realize when the money's not coming back or these people have burnt the capital and require more,
Yeah.
your LPs and everyone isn't going to be happy. So no, that's
Very
a
true.
very good caution to share. Thank you for that.
And I don't want the entrepreneurs who are innovating and pushing the envelope in humanoids to be upset. I have a huge respect for what they're trying to do, and maybe, I mean, some of them will prove me wrong,
Hmm.
and I hope so. But I think it's important also to manage expectations of the
Right.
investors. Like, let's be realistic with them when they should expect return and how long this will take until it get kind of mass adoption.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people position well for it. Like you, obviously, Boston Dynamics has been doing this for ages. You got your testers that have capital to put and the need to put it straight into the workplace, and they could just absorb the cost in another area. But a brand new startup that comes in, it's a big feat, right? It's a big undertaking
Yeah,
to actually go in. It's going to require a lot of capital, a big team,
yeah.
and you need to have displayed some of that previously to make it a success. Um, Thank you for that. Before we wrap this up, any advice that you can share, or like reflecting on a valuable lesson or experience that you've had from your journey nurturing robotics innovation or investment that you'd like to pass on to others as a final thought?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of disappointing things and discouragements around us. And if a guy from Egypt can come, get accepted to MIT, start a company, get up again, get involved, create an organization that eventually become huge and a leading organization in such a very cutting edge space like robotics, and then would never dream of being a VC and kind of investor, and then he kind of raise a fund and invest, then I don't think that people need any other kind of data points. Like, if a guy like that can do it, anyone listening can do anything they want. And I have 4 kids, and I keep telling every one of them, you can do anything. And my youngest, she's 4 and a few months. One day she said, "Oh, I can't do that." I said, "No, never say I can't. You
Mm,
can do anything." And it was such an amazing thing to hear her kind of repeating that. She said, "I can do anything." It's just such an amazing kind of message, and I think that we all should be telling ourselves and telling everyone around us, "You can do anything." You just need to pay the effort. You just need to pay the time. You just need to pay the commitment, the discipline. Um, Nothing comes for free. I mean, this glorious, inspiring story that I have lived, it didn't come for free.
yeah.
There was lots of sacrifices. There was lots of tears, lots of wounds, lots of disappointments. This is the price you pay for something that you will enjoy and you will be proud of.
That's worthwhile.
So yeah, I think the key thing that we need to remind ourselves of every day is we can do anything.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, Fady. So key things for me, the best way to learn about a company is to start one.
Yeah,
everyone who wants to learn about a business or a company, go out there, start one, get your
for sure.
hands
no
dirty.
way around it.
Yeah. Have technical and industry expert on your team, founding team, very crucial. And remember that you can do anything. This is great.
Yes.
3 great things for me. Thank you, Fady.
Thank you, Greg.
This was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I know that this is going to be widely shared and tons of listens. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And I wish all the best for you and everyone who's listening to us.
Thank you. Fady, where can people find out more about you and the companies?
So our website is www.cybernetix with an X at the end, .vc.
Perfect.
This is the best way. And we have been also organizing one of the leading events in the space called Robotics Invest. So it's also www.roboticsinvest.tech.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, Fady.
Thank you.